Welcome everyone to Cerulean Arts virtual tour and talk for the current collective exhibition, which features the work of Celia Abrams, Barbara Vicks, Judy Caldwell, Jennifer Kish, and Alan Lankin. We are recording this for posterity, so after the fact, it'll be on our YouTube channel, so you can see it there or forward it to people who couldn't make it. I'm gonna spotlight Tina's video. The show is up through July 2nd, so we hope you can come down and see it in person. So Tina's going to walk through the gallery, and we're going to visit each gallery and talk to the artists. And the first that we're going to see is Judy Caldwell. Hello, Judy.
Hello. I am delighted to be here. And this is my work that I'm a Philadelphia painter, Academy graduate, and I'm now living in Vero Beach. But most of the work in the show is from my time here at Spring Hills Farm in about 2 hours north of Philly. And what I do is I love rubbing woods and here is a piece where you can see the knot up in the corner on the right. And for me, it really spoke about a quiet moonlit night. And so in rubbing these different planks of wood, I see the in everything that I do. And this piece here is my mud season. It is, you're getting too close. And I'm really a New England painter. Anything to do with the woods of New England, and I'm a happy camper. So there's a lot more in this piece, and the next bunch of work is from Vero Beach, where, as you can tell, the color and the light is very, very different. And hence my painting is very different. The colors are different. The motion is different. And I'm different. So this is what happens to me when I end up in Vero. The next one is more New England-y. It's of a brook at my family's farm in New Hampshire on a spring day. And that's a view that I've had in my memory now for 70 some odd years. So it's nice to be able to record it.
So
and then the
Judy,
next,
are you
yeah,
are you working from imagination, observation, or a combination, or?
no, imagination.
Hmm.
This as well is imagination and from Vero, and very much about the dunes that one has in Vero. Um, and this is so typically um, the one on the left is so Vero. I mean, we have nothing but pink and green down in Vero. And this was just a piece that happened, and I'm delighted with its um, happiness. Um, Sunflowers. Um,
So, Judy, what's the main difference
okay.
between Florida and Maine for you? Is it the light or the color or?
It's both. This is from Monhegan Island, where I go in August and September. And it's off the coast of Maine. And it's just, it has such history to it as a fishing community and beautiful woods. And this is just my interpretation of its um, pines. Um, and the next one is a Vero one also, sort of remembering and thinking of autumn. Um, and um, I do a lot of mark making, and I do a lot with finger painting, and um, I I actually do not like brush, so anything I can do to not have a brush in my hand, I will do. Uh, and then this this piece is 4 by 6, and it is a wood rubbing of a buckboard that I put the canvas on. I flopped it on the sides and the bottom of the buckboard. And with ash from the fireplace and black acrylic, some inks, um, I was able to see through all those marks into a forest. And this excited me like, I mean, I love this piece because there is so much that is going on in it, yet it has a quiet feel as you enter into the forest. The next one is like the very first one, again, planks of wood. And what I've done here is more or less framed out what I have seen, the various landscapes that are there. And uh, so that's, I'd come across um, a saying by Jen Mitchell who said, I carry the landscape with me, or I carry the landscape in me. And I think that this is very much what I do. I see things, I see the landscape in anything and everything. So this shows you uh, where I'm coming from and where I'm happiest.
Well, thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
And next we come to Barbara Bix. Hello, Barbara.
So this is the first time that I've had everything together in a show, so it's been very exciting for me. I would call myself a glass, mosaic, and kiln-fired artist, and I've worked with glass in different ways over many years. These initial smaller sculptures I did most recently, and it's a combination of using smaltai, which is a type of Venetian glass, and the flowers that are three-dimensional are formed in a kiln using different types of molds. You start with a rubber mold and then makes a wax relief, and from that you make a plaster mold, and then you use crushed leaded glass and fire it up to usually around 1500 degrees to make these glass flowers. And that was something that I started doing during COVID, working with an art teacher and learning how to make kiln-formed sculptures. So the 4 small sculptures that are here are made with lost wax kiln form molds that I was just describing. I had started collecting cacti prior to the pandemic, and I used many of them to form the initial substrates for the pieces of the sculptures that you see here. The top and bottoms of the cacti and the base are all made separately, and then they're refired together so that they adhere into a single form. It's a very tedious process in that there's lots of opportunities to, make mistakes and to have things not work out. And it requires a lot of precision, but I think that the end results are pretty amazing, the way the light reflects off of the glass. And, I'm very happy at how they turned out.
So
when I look at go ahead.
Oh, I'm just sorry. They have interesting titles, these.
Yes, so that's what I was just going to say.
Okay.
So when I look at the cacti, I actually see them as people. So the one that you're looking at now, I entitled Weathered, and it reminded me of 2 elderly people that were leaning towards each other, that were, using each other's strengths to go forward. The one that has the right below it with the 2 cacti, I saw those as being younger adults, and I called it Dance Marathon Big Hair Night. And to me, the top parts of the cacti with all the intricacies reminded me of very fancy hairdos that women would sport prior to going out for the, to dance for the evening. And the one next to it is Children at Play. And again, I see the 2 smaller orange and blue cacti as the children, with the taller, darker blue cactus as the parent, and the green cacti is actually a big tree that is reflecting the shadow onto the children and the parent. And the final one is blessing of the children, and I saw that as a parent who's the cacti in the back with the arms open, blessing the three children, and they're sitting on a sculpture of a hamsa, which is a form of protection from things staying safe. So that's how I envision them. The sculpture on the floor is called Faith and Fate, and the front part that you're looking at now displays different milagros, which are amulets in different Spanish cultures that would be placed at the base of a saint to say a prayer. This particular one that you're looking at has a married couple and a baby and a woman who's pregnant, and they would lay these amulets at the saint to wish them a happy life, to make sure that the baby was healthy. And so I incorporated them. The middle one looks at death, and there's the evil eyes that are watching over you. There's one that looks at a deathbed and different aspects of the end of life. And then the third looks at the phase of life where you have family and work, and they would have milagros of livestock and chicken to pray that they would stay healthy. They would have ones of houses and different aspects of the home, and they would all be, ways of praying that things would go well in those areas. And the reverse side of it is the Greek fates, and with the concept, sort of juxtaposed to faith, that what's going to happen to you, that you start out with a scroll of all the pieces of your life, and that those threads get measured and then ultimately get cut. And the figures at the bottom are made of a special type of modeling clay, and those are basically, supposed to be souls. And these are the fates that happen.
Barbara, there's a question for you about the base with the writing on it. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So the writing on the bottom basically describes what I just told you. It tells about the different aspects of faith and the use of milagros, and juxtaposing that with the fates of mythology. And so it basically sort of explains the sculpture. And I did a series of using antique windows, and using different materials to make the mosaic. The flowers are made out of clay, and the base of where the flowers are is actually art paper with tempered glass over it, which gets crushed into tiny, tiny pieces, and that's what forms that appearance. And then it also includes pieces of smalty, which are the Venetian glass, ceramics, and also stained glass. So it's just, I enjoy putting a lot of different textures and patterns together.
So, Barbara, where did you learn how to work with glass and mosaic?
I took classes probably 15, 20 years ago when I had 3 very small children and I needed to do something for my sanity. And, I took some mosaic classes, and then I worked with a couple individual artists, and just sort of have been doing it, since that time, exploring different ways and different types of materials. The hair in that particular picture is a textured stained glass, and it sits over, again, the art paper, and the glass has an iridescent sheen to it, which gives the different colors of the hair. The body is made out of fused glass pieces, and I made those first in the kiln and cut out the pattern, and then that gets fired in the kiln, and then I use those to form the base of the body. I was reading my young kids stories about Alice in Wonderland and also about Greek mythology, and so that's where those ideas initially came from. This piece is mostly, again, fused glass, and here the pieces of glass are slumped, and that gives the sculptural quality of the flowers. And I also, the top part of it, I made some little birds out of different pieces of glass that I fused in the kiln. And the rest of them are pieces of clay that were fired. So it was really just combining different materials together. And this is Persephone, which is, very similar to Alice, just a different concept and a different story, but it's made very much the same with the individual pieces of fused glass. This was a more recent piece that I did that I worked on for, over many months. And it was incorporating very intricate patterns that I cut of flowers, primarily using smalty and also stained glass, and then adding the kiln fired and formed flowers to the piece. And I was happy to finally complete it. I worked on it sort of on and off over about a year.
And it's on a repurposed window?
Yeah, so I went to different secondhand stores over a number of years and was able to find some antique windows, which I then, repurposed and reclaimed, and they form the base of the mosaic. And this one is similar. The frame is, again, using art paper that is put on over the wooden base. this is mostly just stained glass and smalty. It was an earlier piece, and it's a more simpler design than some of the later pieces.
Barbara, there's a couple more questions. So the base on Faith and Fate, how did you make it?
So the three women are on a iron base that's framed, and I took a series of classes to learn how to work with iron and to solder. And so the three women I made during that year that there was a place down in Fishtown, and I took classes there. The base that they sit on, I had somebody that worked in metals make the base for me. That I did not make, but the three women that the mosaic is tiled to, I made those with my, basically from the instruction of taking probably about a year of metalworking classes.
And for the soles on the back side, what kind of clay did you use for those, or how were they made? The sole faces?
They were made out of epoxy sculpt, which is a type of, which I also use to adhere different pieces together, but you can use it to sculpt with, and that's basically what I use to make the soles.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's a beautiful show.
Thank you.
And next we have Jennifer Kish. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi. I am a landscape painter. Currently, I've taken sort of a circuitous route to this. I grew up in a family of painters, so I think I've always had a pencil or a paintbrush in my hand as far back as I can remember. My father painted landscapes, and my mother was more of a figurative portraiture painter. But to their dismay, I did not go to art college. I wanted to study math. And so I took quite a hiatus from painting, but I've just come back to it probably about 5 years ago when I was living in Bermuda. And just that's a picture of Bermuda right there, just the colors and the drama of the sky and the ocean. Just, I felt like I had to start painting again. And so I did. Then my first few paintings were pretty terrible, but I slowly got better, and I just love painting landscapes. I think it's partly that I started scuba diving in Bermuda. That sounds a little odd, but it like reset my visibility, like going to a total alien place and seeing how different it was. And it just made me appreciate the world that I lived in more, and I could study it like from a fresh perspective. I have a few places that I love to paint. One of them is Northern California. Those rolling hills you see in the one below this are Northern California. I just love the way the light and the sea accentuates the rolling hills. So there's a couple places I'm drawn to in the world, but I love to travel and to look for places that really, really appeal to me. This next one is just practically in my backyard, but the thing that drew me to it was just the composition and the colors of the purple cloud and just that last little glow of light seeping through and the downward sloping dark field. So it's hard for... Sorry?
That's someone who's unmuted, so I'm gonna find me. So carry on.
So
Sorry about that.
It's hard for me to say what will attract me to something that I want to paint, but people have told me my paintings make them feel calm, and I think that's one thing. I painted most of these during the early coronavirus years, and I just wanted to feel calm. So I chose like calm, beautiful, kind of mystical places. This one is based in Scotland. I don't always like take an actual place and like repaint it, take a picture and repaint it. I have just landscapes floating around in my brain, but they're usually based on somewhere that I've been. And so this one is based on Scotland. It's just a beautiful light, kind of silvery light in Scotland that I love. This one is also in Scotland. Just the way it's cloudy a lot of the time, but the sun just breaks through with this wonderful light that you see. I just love it. So Scotland, Northern California.
So are you recording these in photographs, or how are you making your references?
Well, when I first started, I recorded meticulously everything in photographs. But now that I've gotten more experienced, I do both imagination combined with looking at photographs that I took when I was on the site. This is a walk with my nephew in Northern California. We were rushing to get the walk in before it got dark. But I stopped and let them rush ahead and just remembered how beautiful it was, that in between time between day and night.
And someone's asking, what is your preferred type of canvas?
Well, I used just normal canvas. I painted one painting on linen, which I love, but it's very expensive. So I'm hesitant to use it. But normal, just cotton canvas. I like square formats for some reason. I did train as an architect, so although I haven't, I've been mostly focused on landscapes. I feel like buildings are coming, so we'll see where that takes me. This is a beach in Bermuda. And here what attracted me was the deep, deep shadows and the brightness of the water and the sand. You think I've exaggerated the colors, but I haven't in that one. And this is Scotland, the Orkney Islands. So beautiful and mysterious and calm. Now this wall is a little different. Sometimes I take it upon myself to study something. So the one in the middle, I've been a little afraid of trees, so I just wanted to like study trees carefully and paint trees. Yeah, so this one, I fell in love with the tree on the left, just the way it was reaching out into the landscape. It almost seems human to me, the trees, so I consider them kind of tree portraits. And the way the light came through the trees. So it's a little more detailed and careful than some of my other paintings. But that's just because I really wanted to understand the tree and how it like grew out into the space. And these are small studies, a lake in Scotland, and below that, cliffs in California. Also a little more precise because I'm studying things like grass and cliffs and water. And there's another tree. Oh, these are just kind of misty winter sketches. So I was trying to just capture the mist and the darkness of winter, kind of late winter when you're looking for spring in any kind of color, but you just don't quite see it yet. And this is another one of my tree portraits. So this is a redwood tree in the Muir Woods in California.
So, Jennifer, in your statement, you mentioned awe and alienation, I believe. So,
Yeah. So that goes back to scuba diving. I felt like I was an alien in another world, but it was like super incredible. And just like to watch fish swim around, that was their world, but I was just kind of visiting. And then I go back to my own world and I just looked at it differently. It's hard to explain just how amazing it was. Just everyday things you see are so amazingly beautiful. And this is just the water. I love the water. Sparkling water.
And these are Bermuda, yes?
Yes. Swirling cloud. And this is a little more ominous, but I always loved it in Bermuda when the sky was darker than the water, which happened in storms primarily. So here you see an instance where the water is so light and the cloud above it is so dark. Those are coral reefs, the brown things in the front.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure.
And next, we have Celia Abrams. Oh, Celia.
Hi. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. And Tina and Mike, I appreciate this opportunity to talk about myself and my work. Along with Judy, Barbara, Jennifer, and I like the way Tina hung the wall. The one thing I wouldn't have wanted to do it because I find it very, very challenging. And also because it felt to me that it reflected my feeling of kind of peace and inspiration in nature. A bit of background about me. I grew up in the Philadelphia area near some parks that were close enough to walk or ride a bike. Since childhood, I've loved being in nature, especially near creeks and ponds. My grandmother introduced me to art by providing me with a jumbo pencil and a doodle pad, and I actually found the jumbo pencil, so I have it somewhere. My parents supported my interest with lots of classes, and in my late 20s, when I was preparing to go to college for a healthcare career, I took 5 sciences and 1 oil painting class. And the oil painting class opened up a whole new world for me. I loved the smell of it, the feel, the flexibility. And for me, it allowed me to feel like I had an unplanned experience when I did art. I took a break from working in healthcare and I pursued my passion and attended class at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts for 4 years. Through the years working in healthcare, I really just didn't have the time to finish many paintings. So I had about a collection of about 70 or 80 of them that were unfinished. And now that I'm retired, I'm painting whenever I wish. And I can slowly nip away at these, both on site if the location is nearby, as well as in the studio. What you'll see in my paintings are the places that I collect. These places for me inspire me and they take my breath away. So plein air painting makes me feel like I'm fully alive because I can be immersed in an environment. The way I approach a painting is to spend a long time looking. It could take hours before I discover a view that captivates me so much that I just don't want to look away. This is the beginning for me of a relationship with a place. Just like any relationship, it takes me a long time and it takes understanding. So initially, everything's unfamiliar. I'm overwhelmed by color, by possibilities of composition and light. I'll do quick sketches, and sometimes I'll feel so frustrated and intimidated by the task or humbled by the beauty and complexity of a place that I'm concerned that I'll fail to capture what I want to capture or even to move forward. So what I do actually, which grounds me, is I do a fairly detailed monochromatic underpainting prior to adding color. And I've done this in most of these paintings. There's some exceptions. For instance, let me find one. For instance, in Days End at Little Egg Harbor, that was done in 2 sessions, and I was able to move quickly with it. The painting you're looking at now is one that I did, the only one of this group that I did not on location, but in the studio, from memory, from other sketches, other paintings, and some photographs. And I was very excited with it because I realized that this place had become mine. I'm not a photoreal painter, as you can see. I like to explore as I paint, such as to include pathways and waterways. I'll make a house closer than it really was, such as in this painting here. I'll base this on what's around me or just my imagination. I often paint reflections, which you'll see in a lot of these paintings. And it's for a reason. Similar to the concept that you can never truly know a person, I feel I can never fully take in what I'm seeing in a place. However, the reflections offer me an image I can explore, experiment with, and be playful. Once a place inspires me, I return at various times of day and all times of year. A strong bond forms where I feel like a piece of me is living or residing. If I drive by the place, I feel like that's mine. I have part of ownership there. My landscape paintings for me are intimate reflections of these places that become part of my life. In this painting that you're looking at here, which I put, I think, Kittatinny gems, each of these little sparks of color for me were like a gem that I was seeing as I looked at. So these paintings for me are very personal. and I'm really gratified to invite the viewer to experience these places in my work. This painting here, I called Promises of the Lake, because each time I went back here in Kittatinny State Park in the Poconos, on the left was a painting that you can't see that I still want to do. There's marshes and color, and I just loved it, but I was captivated by this. And so I still never got to do this other painting, which is promised to me by the lake. So, there's a painting that we started with called Highlights of Olana, which I had started probably 5 or 7 years ago. And now that I have time to paint, I really got a chance to experiment with the highlights and the light. And I would put something in and then wipe it out until I really got excited about how it, for me, turned out, for my eye and how I felt about the place. So I'm not really capturing exactly what I see, but a combination of how, of the spirit of the place and my vision and how I felt. Let me see. There was one you were starting to get to, which was Spirit of the Sycamore. I first painted that tree in the winter, and it was a very little baby tree that showed the only bit of color in the snowland, a little bit of that pale green that sycamore trees are usually looking like in the wintertime. And then I came back to the same spot and saw the tree again in the fall a couple years later, and I felt like, well, you're all grown up. It was really fun to and again connect with this place. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. This is a lot of the scenes that are here. There might be 4 or 5 paintings of this same location, but different views. So this is a place about 5 minutes from my house. In fact, I gave one of my nephews a painting of one of the trees when it was even smaller. And this painting I did on location, but I kept working it and reworking it at home, just to have it look in perspective better than it was, and to work with the colors in the sky.
So Celia, we have a question for you.
Yes.
What color or colors do you use for your underpainting?
Usually warm tones. Usually we'll use burnt sienna, and I may mix that with a little bit of ultramarine. I'll use magenta, and also I'll create some purple colors with ultramarine and cadmium red. Not usually using white. To go back to that last painting that you were at, the way to Big Timber Creek, that's an example of a painting at a place that I go to with a group. On Sundays we go some different places, and what's in the distance is what I saw, but there was really no pathway there that I was seeing. It's usually either underwater or there's a lot of undergrowth of greenery underneath the water if the tides back out. So, so that's an example of that. This one here in the gold frame is from Rehoboth Beach in a place called Henlopen Acres. And it was just this magical little place between a huge mansion and a harbor that to me just lit up with the reflections, and the way in the distance I saw a buck running, and I call it awaiting the blue heron. And that's because I always thought that my father, when he came back, would be a bird, or that he was a blue heron. And I saw one there, and it landed. And whenever I go back, I wait to see, is it going to come back again? A little tidbit, a friend of mine said that she thought the same of her father, which was kind of a disappointment, because I thought maybe it was her father that I saw. So that's my story. Thank you very much for listening and sharing this with us. Oh, there's one other painting. Now, this is the only watercolor in the show. And I don't prefer to work in watercolor, but I do it at times. And this was one that I did the Japanese tea garden in Golden Gate Park. In this particular case, I was more interested in the land, I guess, than the reflections, because I enjoyed some of the abstract shapes.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Celia. And next we come to Alan Lankin. Hello, Alan.
Hello. Thanks for showing my work. It's great to see the work out of my studio in together. These works are acrylic on canvas for the larger one, such as this, and the smaller works are on paper, a mixture of acrylic and some other media. As you can probably see, I like color quite a lot. I use a lot of bright colors. I also like lines and drawing. These these smaller ones are watercolor and I think some graphite for the marks.
So, Alan, what is your background?
Well, I didn't go to art school, but I have taken art classes in college at Penn, and also I took classes at the Academy and some other places, Pennsylvania Academy. But all of my painting before this was in oils, and I just kind of started on acrylic out of necessity. And these are kind of they develop as I paint them, and I try to start with something, but something hopefully emerges gradually. It could take a year or two for a painting to finish. So I make changes and add colors and take things away till hopefully it gets interesting.
Are you facing a blank canvas, or are you doing any advanced work?
Start with a blank canvas. I may have an idea of some colors to use or some lines to make, or sometimes jumping off from a portion of another painting, or maybe the middle state of a painting where I remembered some colors that I liked. This painting here has some collage and using some torn up elements from another drawing that I decided I could recycle. And this painting is acrylic. And I do like giving them titles, even though they're abstract, but the titles kind of come at the end when I kind of think of I don't know, something that sparks an idea in me.
Yeah, the titles are quite evocative.
This one is called Gathering. I also like doing some of these layering where I have a mixture of opaque colors and more transparent colors, which kind of gives it depth and kind of a luminosity that's interesting. These are actually acrylic on a linen on a small panel, as is this one. And the one on the left is called Hidden, and the one on the right is Layers of Memory. It's another green world.
So how did you find your way to abstraction?
I did a lot of landscape painting. Well, and I took classes in still life and figure drawing. But when I was doing landscape painting, I guess I was attracted to other painters who were more bolder or abstract, like early modernism, Matisse and the Fauves, and various other people, Richard Diepenkorn, later on in the time. And I just wanted some stronger feeling in it than copying what I saw in the landscape. Or I was trying a way to express what I saw, in a non-literal way.
Because sometimes the work has hints of landscape or structure, like buildings, some of them.
Yeah, I was also more so maybe in earlier series. But I used to take the train to go to work from Mount Airy to Center City, and it would travel through the old rail corridor, and there were a lot of old factories and buildings with red, this brilliant red brick in the light, and white framing, and just windows, and that kind of architecture was interesting. And also Philadelphia has so many interesting buildings, so I was attracted to that. And I also like the landscape, so there's elements of the real world in a strange way. And this one with the lines, I sort of felt like I was going on a trip, in the painting and trying to find various places. And it kind of evolved into this.
And you said it could take a year or so, right, to finish some of these?
Yeah, or 2 years.
So you just keep them to the side and then pull them back out?
Yeah, or I'll work a little bit at a time and then work a little, like do a little bit at a time and stare at it and try something kind of gradually, or finally get frustrated and paint something over it and maybe something interesting happens.
And the small ones are done like in conjunction. Do the small ones ever turn into, or do they serve as studies for larger paintings?
They don't serve as studies for larger paintings. There might be elements that migrate between them. This one's called The Conversation, which is sort of my in-joke because it reminded me of a Matisse painting that's at the Hermitage of Matisse and his wife on opposite sides of the room. Yeah, and this one's pretty more architectural. In places.
It's called, is this Into the City?
Yes. And this, I think, is the last one. This is called city lights, and this is acrylic, but it's part of his collage of other pieces of acrylic. Any questions, thoughts?
Yes, any questions for Alan? Any of the artists have questions for Alan or each other? Well, thank you, Alan. It's great.
Thank you.
Okay, last call for. Okay, here's a question. What do you use besides a brush to apply paint?
I use some acrylic markers sometimes to give the lines, and I also wipe away, like with a towel. I might apply painting and kind of remove it. But it's mostly with brushes.
Okay, well, if that's it for questions, I guess we'll call it here. Thank you very much, artists, for your fine work. And thank you for everyone for coming tonight. The show is up through July 2nd, so we hope you can come down and see it. And hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Tina.
Tina and Michael.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.